And public work.
And we have the esteemed Mike Robbins. I saw the esteemed, yeah. I saw that you would not want me to tell people that you're here.
We support you speaking up for yourself, Mike.
I'm trying to protect you. I call to order the city council meeting April 15th, 2024 for the city council for the city of Petoskey. I ask that you rise with me for the pledge of allegiance to the United States of America's flag. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ms. Beck, would you please call roll for the city?
Moore, present. Shield,
Here.
Wagner,
Here.
Walker. Here. Murphy.
I'm present also.
Microphone.
Okay.
Yeah, microphone.
We have the opportunity two, and this opportunity that we had council, several members asked and said, hey, we've never had a presentation from the cemetery on relationships with the city and what's going on there. Just an update. So I'm going to call on Carl Crawford. He's the sexton of the cemetery. He told me he's worked there 63 years. 64 years. Apparently today was another day. Huh? Okay. I'm going to turn it over to Carl and he's going to give us a summary. You've got a really cool pamphlet.
Did everybody get one?
Oh my. The most important people didn't get one. We're all good?
Yep.
Push the button to make it green.
Yep,
You're on, Carl.
all right. I'm Carl Crawford, Superintendent of Greenwood Cemetery. I have been there 64 years. Started when I was one. And actually when I was 14. But Greenwood Cemetery began in 1875. Petoskey, I guess, officially began in 1852. Greenwood Cemetery officially began in 1875 when Dr. William Little, the president of the village of Bear Creek, bought some property for the cemetery, for Greenwood Cemetery. He thought that any self-respecting village should have a cemetery, and up until that time, people were burying on their own city lot or farm, and so 1875 was the beginning. In October of 1875, Hattie Tracy was the first burial in Greenwood. She was 29 years old. And in November, Dr. Little, 33 years old, became the second burial on the properties that he had bought the land, bought for a cemetery. In February of 1897, the city had incorporated by that time, and Bear Creek and the city of Petoskey and Resort Township went together and formed a cemetery board. This was enacted by an act of the state legislature in February of 1897, Act number 306, and they appointed, or they allocated 3 members from the city of Petoskey to be on the cemetery board and 1 from each township. I guess that kind of tells you what the population or the tax base was at that time. But then Lakeview Cemetery in Harbor Springs was set up by a different act on the same day for West Traverse, Little Traverse Township in the city of Harbor Springs. And they have 1 member from each unit of government on their board. Other than that, the cemeteries are pretty much the same. I don't know of any other cemeteries in the state of Michigan set up that way. There may be. I've asked around. I've never been able to find any other ones that are. In that act, it gave Greenwood and Lakeview the right to levy a millage for their upkeep. So that's been in effect since 1897. that's basically the way the cemetery has been run since 1897. We like to say that a cemetery is forever. And a private cemetery like you would find in many of the larger cities was set up usually in 1920, 1930, 1940 in that era. And they all were required to have perpetual care as a basis for their upkeep. And so if they ever filled up the cemetery, that there would be a fund to maintain that cemetery going forward. Municipal cemeteries were not set up that way. So Greenwood, the first lot was sold in 1875. We're still maintaining that lot. They sold that for $8 for a 10 or 12 grave lot. And 149 years later, we're still maintaining, mowing, string trimming, doing the leaves, picking up brush, doing everything that we would do to the lot that we sold yesterday. So in that way, municipal cemetery, so one reason for the millage, the tax funding is because there is no way we couldn't sell lots for enough money today to pay for the upkeep of those lots years and years ago. And when Hattie Tracy died in October of 1875, cemetery told the family at that time, and we're going to take care of this for you forever. And so far we have. So some wonder if my family owns the cemetery. No. My grandfather, William Carl Crawford, retired from the city of Petoskey as police chief in 1920 and took the job as cemetery superintendent. He was 55 years old at the time. My father, at 24 years old, came to work at the cemetery in 1930 and was superintendent in 1939, serving till 1977. And then he was on the cemetery board for 2 years. And then I volunteered one day when my dad came over, grabbed me by the scruff of the neck and said, "You're going to work." And I decided to work at the cemetery. That was in June of 1961. So I say that not because, our family's nothing special. We just, I grew up in the cemetery. It's something that it was dinner conversation. I went over to visit my dad at work when I was 10 years old. It's just always been part of me. And so some people don't care a lot about working in the cemetery. For our family, it's who we are. But longevity is important in our family. That's a nice thing. But also the cemetery board, we have had 2 board members, Charlie Henneke and Chalmers Curtis, that were on the board for over 50 years. And when people ask me about how do you know the cemetery is going to keep taking care of my lot year after year after year, and I tell them about the longevity of the Chalmers Curtis and Charlie Henneke and John Clark and John Link and other men and women who are on the board for a long period of time, it helps them have a comfort level with what we're doing. So I thank the city. I know that there's efforts sometimes to keep board members rolling over, and know that we really appreciate having a board that is there for a long period of time and knows some of the problems, knows the ins and outs, and knows how to react to them. So not only are we taking care of lots from 149 years ago, but we're also planning for the future. We're planning for not 150 years from now, but for 10, 20, 30 years from now, and what cemetery we're going to have available at that time, because it takes a while to build a cemetery section, to have irrigation and to have roads, to have trees, to do all the things that is necessary to lay out a cemetery. So since I put this booklet together a few weeks ago, I found that Petoskey was voted 3rd best small city in the nation, which I think is totally wrong. They should have been 1st best. We should have been 1st best. But I think that you drive around the city of Petoskey. I've lived here all my life. And you drive around and you see the ball fields and the waterfront and the city buildings and all that and the streets and all of that. And you can see that there's a lot of pride taken in our city. And I like to think that Greenwood is part of that, that we take the same amount of pride in what we do and feel that we're an asset to the city of Petoskey. So, do you have any questions? I also given you a handout here, so if you come across anything in there that you say, boy, that doesn't make sense, you know, give me a call, text me, email me.
You personally. I know personally you were concerned about the Petoskey News Review. And I think it's good for council and public to know about your efforts and what you've done with newspapers from the News Review that would have probably ended up being dumpstered or recycled. Is that correct?
Yeah, in about 1985, we had a water problem in one of our buildings that affected some of our records, and we said we've got to do something to make sure our records are protected. So we bought a photocopier and we started photocopying records, and we did that. And we thought, you know, we could photocopy the obituaries out of the local paper. Some cemeteries have done that for years. We never did. And that was a good idea. But then we thought, you know, we got them from 1985 going this way, but we don't have them from 1984 going that way. So we talked to the library and to the Historical Society and said, could we come down and take pictures of the newspapers, and they said no. And so then we talked to the library, and the library said, yeah, we have microfilm here. You can come down and you can take the microfilm back. And so we bought a digitizer, and we digitized the microfilm to put, and because of the papers were too long, we just did the first day or two, and the first day of the paper on the obituary page, and any major history that was going on. And then we bought another scanner, and we were able to do the whole paper. Then we talked to the Historical Society again, and we said, could we get the bound copies from you, bring them back to the cemetery, photocopies them, put them back together and bring them back? And we said, no, but you can have them. So at that time, we had just moved into our new old building. Our new building was built in 1879. And we moved there, and so our old office had nothing in it. So we took all those newspapers, the bound copies, to our old office, has air conditioning and heat, and has a security system. And so the papers were in much better shape there. And so since then, we've been copying the newspapers and scanning the newspapers and making them available on our website. So at this point in time, we have about 68,000, I think, newspapers that are on our website. We have close to 90,000 obituaries that are on our website. And we have numerous historical articles. I don't know if I can find the quote in here. You'll read it if I don't. One of our board members, Lou Fantini, somebody asked at one of our board meetings why we do all this. Lou Fantini said, we not only have an obligation to preserve the resting place of the people within our care, we have a responsibility to preserve their story as well. And so we've tried to do that. We've tried to preserve the records because it's an important part of Petoskey. We get numerous comments from people that they use our website at least once a day. And I always thought that was silly. But then when I see the records from a web site, there are people that are doing that. And so that we're doing what we can to preserve the history, not only for the community's sake, but for the sake of the people that are in our care. So we also, the News Review, when they were starting to close down, we knew that they had a lot of old photos of Petoskey, and we went and talked to Michelle Harrington and said, could we get those photos, bring them to a cemetery, scan them, take them back? She said, no, but you can have them. And so we bought 150 archive boxes of papers and and photos and that. And we, in the wintertime, when my crew is not mowing and raking leaves and that kind of thing, we scan photos and newspapers and that. So we're trying to preserve the history. So.
Mr. Shields.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Crawford, to you and your family for your years of service to this community. My question is understanding the process. You mentioned kind of planning for the future, particularly along Epler Road with the tree clearing that looks like it's been going on since 2012, 2014, maybe.
Probably.
And then recently a lot of the earth moving. So can you explain the process and maybe the history or reasons or questions that maybe the public has of what's going on there?
We're just, again, part of that planning for the future is that we're planning, where contractors bring in waste dirt that they're not using, and we're filling in the ravine there, leveling the ground. We did cut 10 acres of trees on our southeast corner. We're planting 5 acres of trees to make up for that. So we're an arboretum. We take trees seriously. And so we are replacing at least a portion of the trees that we cut. But that's all for the future. We did open part of that last fall, a portion of that. We bought 10 acres there, about 2004, I think.
So the filling the ravine is to create more usable space for the cemetery.
Correct.
Thank you.
And I know there's been some concern about the water going down through there, but I can promise you there's not any more water going down through the ravine, if as much as what there used to be. So we hear that comment every once in a while. So.
Ms. Demore.
So as a history major, very, very grateful for your efforts. And as I shared with you before the meeting, I certainly see cemeteries as a repository of history. It's very powerful. So I echo all of our thanks to you for your efforts.
Thank you.
I'm curious if this document exists in a digital form so that it can be shared beyond the folks here at the meeting and at the
It could be, certainly.
Okay.
Could you send the digital of this to Sarah? You've got a connection with Sarah. I know. Send it to Sarah. She'll put it on the website or disperse it.
Okay, sure.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Ms. Walker.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Carl. Your presentation was excellent. And I thank you and your family for the legacy of maintaining Greenwood Cemetery.
Thank you.
It is a very special place, and I also appreciate it that it is an arboretum. I tend to go, when I go and visit older cities in the United States, I tend to go visit cemeteries because they also happen to be the locations where some of the oldest growth trees in the community exist. So I find them very wonderful places to visit. I also wanted to ask you, because you've been there since 1961 and previously as a child growing up in the industry, the disposition of bodies has really changed since 1960. And so that's when cremation kind of came to be of more popular. What are you seeing as the general trajectory of our people proportionately choosing cremation over burial? And do you see that as being the future trajectory of ways to dispose of humans?
I think obviously so. When I started the cemetery, we would do one cremation interment every 5 years. And now probably 50 to 60% of our interments are cremation. We have a scattering garden. I think that's addressed in the booklet here. We have a scattering garden where people can scatter cremains. We have columbariums where people, like a mausoleum for cremation urns that people can use. And we have direct in-ground burial. But so we have a lot of cremation activity, but probably at least 60% of that is cremation. So.
Excellent. And as the crematory on site at Greenwood, as well, does Lakeview have their own crematory as well? Do they vote those corresponding cemeteries?
Neither one of us have a crematorium.
Okay.
That would usually be done either in Gaylord by Stone Funeral Home or other funeral homes in Traverse City or whatever, so. So neither one of us have a crematorium.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Wagner.
Thank you again, Carl.
So that,
My wife, so I'm from Western New York. My parents are in like the third story of a 6-story mausoleum. So that'll be my second part. Has that been considered? But I also want to say thank you for the historical records that my wife has traced her family history back to the 1700s in Mackinac Island, but a lot of her research was done through Greenwood.
is that right?
So, yeah, so I'm curious about, have we looked at going up at all?
Pardon?
Have we looked at going upward with, maybe you already have, I haven't seen it, with burials,
You mean as far as the number of buildings?
like a 6-story building. Kind of
Oh,
mausoleum.
Yeah.
No, no, we haven't looked at that yet, so.
Carl, I'd like to say thank you very much
You're welcome.
for your presentation. Carl and I share something. We share a great grandparent, way back. So I didn't know if you knew that, but I thought I should share
You won't
that.
have that against me, will you?
He called me cousin when I went back and I thought, that's cousin with cousin, you know,
Right.
on the 8th or 9th level, but thank you, Kyle, for what you do. And again, the historic records to me is fantastic. I've heard more people state that they could find somebody's grave or an obituary.
Yeah, we not only do obituaries that in the paper that are for Greenwood, we do every obituary that's in the paper for whatever cemetery they're in. So we have a wide range of information there, so.
Thank you.
Very good.
Thank you.
Are you doing that because you want us applause next? I'm sorry. Okay. Next is to hear a presentation from the downtown staff regarding the parking enforcement tool recommendations. I'll let you guys carry the ball on this one.
Amy Tweeten, new downtown manager. It's wonderful to see you all again. This presentation came out of a request at the management board, the March management board meeting. A recommendation came forward for some additional enforcement mechanism to the city manager, and the city manager and mayor recommended we come before you to give you some background information. Because you don't follow, obviously, the whole parking management system as closely as the management board does. I'm just going to give a brief overview, and then I'm going to turn it over to April Sanders, our Director of Parking, Mobility, and Accessibility. So again, the parking management system. There we go. Paid parking downtown is not new. It's been in the city of Petoskey since the 1940s. This is a picture from East Mitchell Street. And that's just pointing out where the meters were. The zoning ordinance that was put into place in 1974 created what was called the parking exempt district to now require downtown businesses to put in their own parking, and that was instrumental in protecting our historic buildings. But this means that the parking we have has to be shared among all the different users. We have just over 900 public parking spaces that are metered in what we call the parking area. And that is an area of over 800,000 square feet of commercial area and over 90 residential units. So all of those users are wanting to use that, those parking spaces that are closest to their businesses. And again, that doesn't include the county, and that does not include users of the library. So that's about one space per 1,000 square feet of commercial or of just square footage, which is For most of the uses downtown, that's probably a third to a quarter of what the zoning code would require of a business. So how do we keep or try to manage the parking system so that there is parking available for customers? We do that by regulating the fees and regulating the duration of parking. Either there's areas that there's 3-hour maximum parking and there's areas that are 10-hour. The cost for parking ranges from 25 cents an hour to $1, again, depending on those locations. And over the years, the ways you can pay have increased from just putting coins in the meter to Park Mobile, tokens, credit cards, and then also just monthly or yearly permits, which are the most cost-effective approach. And then there is also free parking within 2 blocks of all directions of downtown. And that is where we encourage as much as possible because it's the most cost-effective for employees, residents that don't have to come and go with their car all the time to park where it is free. This comes actually from a meter. These are on as many of our meters as we can. And this is trying to educate people to what their parking meter fees are going to. And parking revenue goes to beautification, maintenance, economic development. The money for the parking system remains primarily in downtown and it offsets costs that would otherwise be paid by the general fund for capital improvements in downtown. So that's the reason we manage the parking, how we manage the parking. And I think I'm going to turn it over to April, who's going to talk a little bit more about the enforcement side of the system.
Hi, April. I also have a pen, so if you have questions, write it. I'm ready, so you don't have to wait till the end. All right. All right, so why do we want to? Other way. All right, so why do we want to manage parking? One, it's to make sure that customers get into the businesses as more frequently as possible, right? So a premium spot, that way they can go in, go to the bookstore, get some coffee, get some candy, and then they can go on. If residents or employees are parking too long, then it's taking up valuable customer opportunities, okay? And on here, there's the different fees, 1 to 4. It's $10, $15, 30 or more tickets in 6 months is $30 each. And the excessive parking is if you are parked in a 3-hour zone, but you stay there, it's considered excessive parking. And that's a $20 fee. So even if you paid, you've got to move to a different street. Okay. Yes, Tina.
Okay, April, so what does this mean by citation reviews are available within 48 hours of ticket issuance? Thank you for letting me interrupt.
Yes. So anyone that receives a ticket, you have within 48 hours to go online to our website and issue a citation review. You'll put in the reason why you think it was unfair or why you shouldn't have to pay your ticket. Okay, so that's just putting in the details of your car, the citation number, and then the reason. Either you didn't see the meter, it went off, it went too long, you're meeting, you're in court. There's lots of different things. A lot of them, people have paid Park Mobile. They thought they paid, and then the system is a little wonky where it says proceed to checkout to start it, but it seems like it's actually ending the session. So we use this as a type of education and then waive the ticket. Go ahead.
So how do people know about that?
It is right on the ticket. Right in the middle, it's in a bold box that said to issue a citation review, then go online and it's got the website right there. And it's right off the downtown parking.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions? Okay. All right. So, it might be in a later slide, but currently 73% of the people pay the citation within the first 7 days. If they don't, then one of the ways that we remind people is when it gets to $50 based on the late fees. When it gets to $50, we go on to the Secretary of State. They provide the information for the registered car owner, and then we send a letter reminding them, hey, your fine is now $50, please pay. All right. A second letter, if they haven't paid, when it gets to $100, then we send another letter as a reminder. Majority of the time, people pay within that time frame. If they don't, then we go into either, we had historically gone to collections. At that point, it was between 30 to 35. Talked to them last week. The fines are now, their commission is 40%. So kind of pricey. The letters have been working, but that's why we're here. We need some more enforcement tools. Okay. We also have a payment plan for folks that if they can't pay it completely, then we will work out a payment for once a month. We don't have a minimum of what they can pay, what they have to pay. It can be anywhere from $10 to $100 a month.
Without interest.
Correct. Without interest.
Continue after it gets 100. Does that continue to go up?
No, sir. It's capped.
So the
$100.
most-
Sorry.
The most a ticket will cost a person for not paying and allowing it to go is $100.
For an expired meter that was originally $10. If it was not parking within the lines or in a loading zone and that original ticket was $25, the late fees are $90 max. So it'd be $115.
Mr. Moore,
Why is the meter capped at 100?
I believe that was a city council decision.
no,
I would have to check.
Okay, that's fine if you don't.
I know that historically the fees were adjusted in 2019.
but at some point, Mr. Moore,
Mhm.
one ticket, $10 ticket ends up being $3,000, $4,000, and I think that is a bit much.
I'm just trying to, I'm not arguing for a position. I'm just trying to understand how we got where we are. And that's okay. You can follow up. And then the second question, it says here, due to legislation enacted during COVID, most fines that go to collection agencies are never collected. Do we know why that is?
So according to Universal Collections Agency that we utilize during COVID, prior to COVID, they would be able to put it on a credit record and then also stop a license from being renewed until they paid off their parking tickets. And during COVID, that was reduced.
But isn't that then it's reinstituted though?
Not to my knowledge.
Oh, okay.
Is that a state of Michigan policy?
Correct.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else? All right, so the payment plans are there. We currently have 8 people on payment plans. 1 is through collections and another one was a court order. Okay. It's habitual offenders are really the ones that we're targeting. And there's 6 years that we're able to try collections after a parking citation. And it's about $320,000 that's outstanding. And that's, again, it goes, 73% are paying the ticket within the 8 days of receipt.
It was 400,000, wasn't it? I take it was dropped off because of year 7 or something,
6.
6?
You have 6 years.
Because it
to
was
collect.
over 400,000.
And that number will continue to fluctuate because it rolls off. So it's a rolling time frame. Okay. So I thought this was kind of interesting, just to go back, so it's got the total tickets issued from 2019 through each year. And then how many were voided, a percent voided, and then the number of unpaid tickets. So obviously unpaid as a percent will continue since this year. But the percent voided, it's 8, 7, 7, 7, 8, and this year it's 10%. And again, it goes back to if it's a citation review and it's voided, it could be someone comes in and says, right, education purposes, which I think you all received the education packet from Parking Services a couple months ago. So that's one of those things that we're trying to get out more and teach them how to comply is really the goal. Okay. So,
Question,
yes, sir.
Yeah.
of those that are owed, how many actual tickets, it's 320,000. Do you have a number of people?
The unpaid tickets, that's that numbered line right there. Those are the, is
Yeah,
you added
progress.
up in the last 5 years.
Do you know how many of those are
Unique.
Emmett County versus Ohio, Arizona? Do you have a breakdown on locations?
I do, it's in here. The vast majority are Michigan that live here. It's, you have to live here in order to become a habitual offender. I mean, there's, for the most part,
Yeah.
most people only get one ticket a day.
So are of these unpaid ones,
Mhm.
is the hopes of ever getting money from them if you live in Ohio and you never come up here but once every 20 years, I take it those are,
Those, we would not consider them habitual offenders.
Right.
okay,
If somebody, like, for instance, top of our list, we've got a gentleman that had 177 tickets in 1 year. Another one that is, say, habitual, that continually parks on Howard Street. She's accumulated 226 tickets in the last 3 years.
So April, the majority of people are either downtown residents that live downtown or people that work downtown.
Correct.
Okay.
Mr. Moore.
So April, when I look at this chart of how from 2020 until through 2023, the numbers increased.
Mhm.
During that period of time, we changed the hours of enforcement too, right? The hours of enforcement were expanded at some point here.
I believe,
Yes, we
see
did.
this, it was 2019 is the last time everything was revamped.
Does anybody know like what that expansion was? And if not, it's okay. We're putting you on the spot here.
No, that's okay.
Questions.
The,
Went from 5 o'clock to 6 o'clock.
Yeah.
so the hours are currently Monday through Saturday, 9 AM to 6 PM.
So we think that over that period of time from 2019 forward, the only expansion was that single hour at the end of the day from 5 to 6.
And the rates
Yes,
went up.
but time wise,
Saturday as well.
Yeah, and Saturdays.
all day Saturday? It
Yes.
didn't-
10 hours.
Okay. Thank you.
I think there's also addition of staff, which your staff are doing a really excellent job at their jobs. So that could be part of it as well, as like you had an increase in staff and then an increase in the number of tickets issued.
Yep, those were people that didn't put money in the meter then. Or not enough.
Habitual offenders.
Please continue, April.
All right. All right. So what options do we have? Couple of different options that people use around the state. Towing. So the advantage is it removes the car from downtown. Disadvantages is, it's very costly to the owner of the vehicle. Okay. The boot, it's visible, it's very hard to put on is a disadvantage. Safety, you're putting it down on the ground. One of the other things, legal action. So as I said, there's one person on mandated legal and another person going through the court process currently. Again, those people owe significant amounts of money. So we're not talking about someone that owes $500 to $1,000. This is over 15,000 to 50,000. The disadvantage of that is takes up court time and legal fees. So one of the other things that is in the parking industry is it's called the Barnacle. You can see the pictures down here. It's bright yellow. It's a suction cup that goes onto the windshield. The benefit is anybody can pay for it 24/7 by paying through a credit card, and then it'll pop off and then they can just return it within 24 hours. It's like in a post office, like a little mail slot. You'd put it in. It weighs 18 pounds. I've put it on. Doesn't require that much upper body strength, but it's highly visible. It's $250 a month. One of the things that we looked at with the parking committee is if you owed, and I think this is on the next slide. I'll come back to this. Is one of the things that we talked about is we would, if it's one person that you have one ticket, we would not put it on. The guidelines would be 5 unpaid tickets, owing at least $100 up to, you could owe 10,000, but the max to get the Barnacle off would be $250, which seems like a reasonable amount. And if the payment plan, and then requiring people to come and set up a payment plan. And it goes back to your point, we don't charge interest. We just want a consistency to set up success. Okay. Would we like to see a video of the Barnacle?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I don't know how to do that. Okay.
Do they have to do the payment plan if they it's $250, right? They go online and do that with a credit card or whatever, debit, I take it. They do that. You stated that they would come in and set up a payment plan. What happens if they don't show up that do they have to do it before they take it off?
No, they take it off and then you can return it. It's GPS enabled. You return the Barnacle within 24 hours. Our guidelines that we set up is come in and set up a payment plan within the next 7 days.
Okay.
The first thing that you want to do when you find a bad parker is to take a picture of the windshield to show that there aren't any chips or cracks on the vehicle. The easiest way to place the Barnacle on the windshield is to actually place the two flat sides against each other. Place the side with the keypad closest to you. There's a nice rubber ring around that hinge. You can let that flop onto the middle of the windshield. From there, within your Barnacle app, you'll be able to input the vehicle details, the fine amount, as well as that photo of the windshield that we recently took. All of that information will then give you a unique 4-digit code that you will input into the keypad that will help you to arm the device. After you input that code, you'll enter 4 times. You'll then hear that suction start. The main thing that we want to listen for is that chirp. That signifies that the device has officially armed. From that point, your voters will be able to come up, scan the QR code, and pay their fine.
They'll need the phones to,
There is a phone number that's on there too. And that goes to the office, which they would have to, if they didn't have a phone to scan it to pay online with Barnacle, then they would have to wait Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 4:30 to pay.
Okay. Is that it?
I believe.
For the village video?
Yep. Mhm.
What's it?
Try again. There you go.
Yes, okay, we went through this. All right, and the other thing is, we want to continue with the community awareness of please pay the meters, and here's why we want to, is that it continues to provide quick access to the places you want to go downtown. And allows everybody to get there, in, out, enjoy. So, we'll continue with the public service and doing as much as we can to continue educating folks.
Yeah. Let's see, where do we begin? 5 years ago, Downtown Management Board came to City Council, asked for a increase in meter rates. I don't know, none of you were on here at the time, were you? You were here?
Yeah.
Really? Okay. And it was understood that any raise in meters were to go to a separate account that would be used for a parking ramp, so to speak, okay? And at that time, you brought up 15 or 16 pieces that you wanted the city council to weigh in on and to approve changes on your collections, et cetera, okay? And the city council voted on all of them except for one, and that was booting. And city council said no to booting at that time. I don't know. None of you weren't here, were you? No. But that was the situation. So when it came to when Shane and I are on the Downtown Management Board, I felt it was important to bring it back to you because the last time city council voted on, do we go with a boot or not? And city manager, I both felt it was important to bring this back to you guys as we're the ones that are going to get the call. So could you weigh in and give feedback to this possibly, or Mr. Wagner?
I'd like to, thank you. I want to compliment April too, because when we hear occasionally that ambassadors don't act like ambassadors, I've seen her in action. She's a great ambassador out of the street. So thank you for that. About a year ago, I stayed with a good friend in Florida who just sold his parking business. And he had been in the business for 45 years, and he sent me a long treatise basically on all the best practices in parking across the country, small towns, big towns. One of them was to use barnacles. They said, you definitely don't want to boot. You definitely don't want to do some of these other things, but it was a great new technology that made it really simple for repeat offenders, for big offenders to manage this situation where you can't drive away if you can't see. And so it's not, this isn't something unique to Petoskey. It's something that's been proven in a lot of places. Maybe with your new job, I'll send this treatise to you, because there were other best practices around the perfect dimensions of every space. And I know we don't have a standard dimension just walking the streets. So maybe we could get more spots around town too. But anyway, at least from a best practice standpoint, barnacles are recommended.
Council, anybody else wish to weigh in? Ms. Demore?
Well, I have the least experience at this table and in this room on this issue, so I begin with that. But I respectfully disagree with this idea. I'm concerned about the visuals of this, and frankly, I understand that people say no one will drive away with the sun in the window. However, as an attorney, I've seen a lot of crazy things, so I wouldn't leave that off the list. For me personally, I would like to have a better understanding of the global use of these funds. I know there's this history of an intent to have a parking structure, but at least at the time I've been sitting in this chair, that has never moved forward. So while we've extended hours, we've increased fines, I guess I just need a look at, are we judiciously using the funds that we are raising? And the importance in a community like ours, where with so many visitors, of things like this that are very front facing and the message they might send. So again, very respectful of everyone else's expertise in the room, but those are my thoughts with the level of experience that I have in the chair thus far. Thank you.
Mr. Shields.
Yeah, on my thoughts that are currently just forming as well, I think that I agree with my colleague that the idea of looking at holistically where the funds are going is important. I think that I may disagree a little bit about the messaging. I think that a community that enforces the parking and doesn't subsidize parking by providing free and just letting things go free is also a message of that we are serious about walkability and maintaining the integrity and rules of our community. So I could see the messaging different as well on the other side. So I will think about it, but as I sit here, I think this is a great compromise from the boot idea.
Ms. Walker.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, April. I know that you're making a suggestion that the boot, excuse me, not the boot, the barnacle, and I keep on thinking of SpongeBob SquarePants. I keep on hearing the song over and over again in my head. Barnacle. I understand that this is the recommendation of staff. I also understand budgetarily that the parking fees make up about 80% of the Downtown Management Board's annual budget, with the other $137,000 to $170,000 being from the assessments on businesses downtown to fund events, and also the maintenance of our sidewalks and the heavy lift of maintaining clear sidewalks in the wintertime. I also understand the intention from 2019 was as a reserve fund to build a parking structure. And we've gone through a variety of manifestations of that. Is it going to be the Darling lot? Is it going to be the Seville lot when there was a hotel being proposed there at one time? But I would think that this governing body should circle back around to our relationship with Emmett County. There's been a tremendous amount of leadership change there administratively and with their board of directors, and that we had a proposal for building a proposal for a structure on the corner of Lake and Division Street, or yeah, it would be Division right there and Lake. And that could be a structure, multi-layer structure that would accommodate parking of both of Emmett County employees, as there's a growing number of employees in that building, as well as provide a significant amount of downtown parking for the businesses and workers in that vicinity of Mitchell and Division and Lake Street. So I feel comfortable following through on your recommended best practices to encourage trying the barnacle if that's what you think would be best practice moving forward. So that's what I have to share.
Mr. Shields.
There's a question, April, with so the lease, is there a long-term lease that's needed? What's the time frame? Can it be, is it yearly?
For the barnacle?
Yeah, for the
It's a
barnacle.
month to month.
Okay.
Yep, $250.
Okay.
Month to month.
Mr. Wagner.
Thank you. Yeah, clarification again, April. So I'm making assumptions when I say I'm all for it because it's the best practice, but
Right.
is there thought around how many of these we have? So assuming they're not going to be all over town, hundreds of
Right.
articles, and that this is really for the repeat offenders to discourage them from continuing to accumulate hundreds of tickets. And that's my assumption. I could be wrong.
That would be a correct assumption. So it's the parking committee had recommended up to 3. And that's 1 being deployed at a time. Then you have the backups. In case there is somebody that decides to drive off and leave it up in the UP at their cabin, it's all GPS enabled, but they actually, when you go to pay, it's an additional $250 that's put a hold on their credit card. And as soon as it's returned back to the box, it's returned back. If it doesn't, it ends off somewhere, then that's $250 that we don't have to pay for.
Thank you.
What happens if the person has $250 to pay for the fine, but not $250 to an extra? So you're talking $500 basically.
Right, is a hold.
Yeah, so it's
They don't-
500. It's not $250 that you're gonna charge people right off the bat
If they put a hold on the credit,
for
Right.
500.
right,
Okay.
but it's not, that's why they have to.
If these people don't have credit cards or credit,
Mhm,
which is probably quite likely,
mhm.
how does it manage then? How do we take care of that?
Then they would need to come into the office and talk to us.
Council, anything else? Miss Walker?
Thank you, Mayor. Just one more question. You mentioned that the courts were able, you were able to leverage one court case. Can you explain a little bit about the effectiveness of our ordinances and how they hold up in a case of law, of court of law?
It was successful. The first one, he's on the payment plan, and the second one is currently in process.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else, council? I'm in favor of using this. When I was laid up, I watched the parking mores. And I thought personally, I thought the boot was nice. It was, nobody was gonna drive away with the boot on. And they could drive away with this thing on if you were to sit over on the side and drive like this. If there was a boot on, you're not going anywhere. Where we go from here. I support attempting to use this barnacle and see how it works. I'd ask that you would come back in 2 months and give us a report back, because I'd want to know, because we're going to get calls otherwise. If it's not working right. If it's working right, we're happy.
Mayor, you need a motion?
I don't think we have, this is not a motion.
This was just a discussion. We'll bring something forward for you for consideration at the next meeting.
Okay.
I did have a question, and maybe would this be something you would use in the off season? Or would you use this all year long, even with our visitors here?
We can make whatever guidelines we'd like. Our previous parking committee said that there's some challenges, I think, in the snow. That when you put it on and then the difference with the defrost. So I'm not sure how much we would utilize it during the winter. And then if we want to wait to, we're open to anything, whether or not to use it in July and August or stop in those times.
I would, personally, I'd just soon see if we're gonna use it.
Mhm.
Just use it. And if we do approve this in the next meeting or two, I would like to hear you come back and give us a summation on where we are with that.
Also, April, can you, I think this came up at the DMV meeting, if there's a crack in the windshield or any sort of defect that our ambassadors notice, they will not be able to utilize the tool, correct?
Correct.
What? Yeah,
And in that case, then our backup plan, our request would be perhaps that's the cars that get towed.
which is very difficult with cars in front and behind to get a car out of there. That's virtually impossible to tow it out that way, correct? Yeah,
We'd have to ask the tow companies.
yeah.
So on that note, it might be something you want to run by municipal council, because you could have some claims of selective enforcement. If one is more expensive than the other, somebody's got a crack in their window, so they get towed. I don't know the answer. I'm just saying it's a potential question.
Have there been reports of windshields breaking?
Not if it's a solid windshield. If there's cracks, then it's 1,000 pounds of the suction.
I have a little
on them.
crack that can only be seen in my windshield if you stand in just the right spot. And it gets a little shininess, a little starburst, okay? Would that break my windshield?
We could come down to the Elks tomorrow and we can test it.
Okay.
Your windshield out of its misery.
Since you guys are gonna cover it, sure, we'll do that. So I can get a new windshield out of the deal.
Well, you wouldn't really qualify because you don't owe 5 outstanding tickets and owe at least $100, but.
Well, I could rack those up pretty quickly here.
To do a PSA with the mayor's vehicle.
Yeah. Thank you, and we will see you again.
you.
That ends the first hour of the show. Did you want to introduce
I'm
these?
going to,
two?
I'm-
Are you going to do it on your piece? Okay. Next is the consent agenda, and that's the March 18th, 2024 regular session city council meeting minutes, as well as a closed session of the city council meeting as well. It's also acknowledging a receipt of certain administrative transactions that have occurred since March 18th, 2024. And as it also is asking for the approval in this consent agenda to confirm the Northern Den Youth Pantries Incorporated as a nonprofit organization. They want to do a raffle. Right? Yeah, you want this because you're going to do a raffle, is that right?
Right, for a fundraiser.
Right, that's, I wanted.
We need approval, to be able to apply to the state.
Okay, do I have a motion for the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second the motion.
There was a motion from Mr. Wagner, a second from Mr. Shields. Any other discussion? Mr. Moore.
So relative to the dining decks, just confirming that the plan is that the new ordinance that's going to be drafted is going to be in place for consideration in advance of summer 2025. City Manager Horn.
Yes, that is the intent. I think we're pretty close with that. We just didn't think we had enough time to let the business owners know of this change. So this will give them plenty of time to gear up for 25.
Thank you.
Any other discussion or comments?
I have a question.
Ms. Walker.
Thank you. So before we approve the consent agenda that includes C and D, and so will there be any further discussion about the dining decks, or is now our opportunity to talk about that?
Yeah.
Okay.
No.
I do have some questions.
Or you could pull it off for discussion. You could pull it off of consent agenda if you'd like to. That's up to council.
Okay.
You can ask them to come back at the next meeting, but
You can just come on dining deck.
the dining deck.
Okay, well, I would like to have a discussion about it, but I don't want to hold up the approval of the consent agenda. So I was just asking about protocol.
We can pull that out of the consent agenda
To have a discussion. about it.
and you can have a discussion if
Okay.
you'd like.
Yes, please.
Mr. Wagner, are you okay with your motion to pull out?
I am, yeah. So
C.
consent agenda would only include A, B, and D.
Right. Mr. Shields, are you okay with that as a second?
Yes.
Okay, so any other discussion on those first on A, B, and D? I go to Ms. Beck for roll.
Wagner,
Yes.
Shields,
Yes.
Demore,
Aye.
Walker. Yes. Murphy.
Yes. Motion passes 5-0 for those. Now, do you want a discussion on that? You have questions about that?
Yes, please. Thank you, Mayor.
Please go.
Thanks. Okay, so just looking at the resolution itself. So this resolution and the dining deck resolution was approved by the it's in the March Downtown Management Board meeting, and then will now be reviewed by the Downtown Design Committee. So tonight we are just approving the dining deck resolution, but I did have several questions in here. The resolution itself is a 2-page document, and there's certain regulations that just feel hyper picky and like government overreach. So if you just walk with me. Right, thank you. Starting with the first bullet point, dining deck permits will be available on all downtown streets to full-service restaurants that are open 10 hours a day, 6 days a week. Decks may be in place beginning May the 15th and must be removed no later than October the 31st. I think requiring conditions of labor, of workers that have to be servicing those dining decks in 2 8-hour shifts, you're talking about anywhere from like 3 to 4 servers. I really question our downtown businesses and restaurants' ability to even staff their restaurants this summer. So I just felt like that was hyper specific, and you're being inclusive of very specific restaurants to the exclusion of other restaurants. To have a restaurant that serves 10 hours a day, 6 days a week, and that the hours of operation will be consistent with the restaurant's regular hours. If you're talking about a lunchtime venue, you're talking about 11 a.m. to 10 o'clock at night. That does not seem reasonable to me. I wonder about the business's ability to do that. And then it goes on further that there's design guidelines that are hyper specific and very fussy, must be wood or a composite material colored in gray shades to match concrete, wrought iron, aluminum, steel, or cable systems for the dining deck railings. The chairs must be wrought iron, cast aluminum, steel, or other substantial metal material, no plastic or vinyl allowed. It just reeks of like very pretentious and very government overreach. So I had a hard time reading this. I was like, oh, who are they talking about? Who is going to be allowed to have a dining deck? And I could name probably 4 restaurants, to the exclusion of High Five, where they are serving Lula's Tacos there. But also, I would be very curious. Each business that's required to have a dining deck has to have more than 50% of their sales in food, and the other 50% can be alcohol, I guess. So I just wonder about how that will be regulated and who we are being inclusive of and who we are excluding from the dining decks. And those are my questions.
One of the
Gypsy vodka, is that you're talking of gypsy vodka? At that point, they were not 50% of their sales or their activities were food. They were not. Okay, just letting you know why that was rejected in the past.
Like the rules and regulations are being set to exclude certain people out. That's what I'm talking.
City Downtown Management Board Director, Ms. Tweeden, would you address for Ms. Walker her questions?
Thank you. I will try to respond. Again, this resolution was first drafted when we first did the dining decks, I think, during COVID. And a lot of the discussion, I believe, at the management board and at city council is let's not open it up to everybody right away. And because we didn't know how many people would be taking it, how many parking spaces would be lost due to the dining decks. And the thought on the appearance being important and being consistent with the downtown streetscape. Do we want people putting in dining decks that differ vastly from the standard that we've set for downtown Petoskey? So that was the thought. And again, it was a trial that has been just kept moving forward without being finalized. So I don't think this resolution is any different than previous years. I understand the points you're raising. But I think that was it was kind of a compromise of let's see how well this works.
Mr. Moore.
So my question to the city manager is, does this mirror exactly what we passed last year and previously, or are there differences in this?
Yeah, it's exactly the same. The only change is the years, the dates, the fee is new. We spend a lot of time going through these from an inspection, from a permitting standpoint. So we do have a fee schedule that was approved as well. But everything else is exactly the same as it's been. I would just say the standard that we're working on may even be, there's been a lot of thought in it going into this. The idea is we want consistency. We don't want somebody's wood from their shed, making up a dining deck. We want some structure to it. We want it to be safe. We want it to be consistent. So we've been very intentional about putting that together from a consistency standpoint. So hopefully there's support to move this forward. We have spent time with it, obviously. But this is fairly consistent with what we've done in the past. What we're putting together going forward will be a standard specification, a standard look, that if you want to have one of these out in front and you meet the requirements, this is the standard that you have to meet. So there's not this hodgepodge of dining decks that we have in the community. This is a wonderful community that we all appreciate and love, and we want to make sure that we protect that going forward.
Mr. Shields.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm not opposed to this resolution because it's the same one that's the pilot that keeps on going. I've been waiting to have the discussions. I do share some of Ms. Walker's hesitations or thoughts. So I've been waiting to have those discussions for the resolution, the actual ordinance change. So I guess I appreciate all effort going into it, but the fact is there is some hesitation that's been expressed each year. This has come up, so maybe we'll have a good discussion coming in.
What are your hesitations? I guess since you pointed out you had hesitations, what are they?
I'm not prepared to say that right now, other than I resonate with what Ms. Walker said about overreach and there's a balance of wanting the freedom to people to do their business. And I understand that also there's this idea of uniformity and what looks good in the community. But sometimes I might balance safety and freedom over uniformity. So that's some particular ideas about how to order things. I'd have to spend more time to come up with particulars though. And then having something in front of us would enable that process.
This is, like city manager stated, this is no different than what has been carried on for the last several years. Things that you've mentioned, such as the plastic or vinyl seating and stuff like that. I prefer that we go with some quality, to be honest with you. I think it's important for our dining decks to have some common looks to them for the community's sake. I think it has worked in the past, and I think it's a good thing moving forward. The issues of 50% sales for food is something that has been in effect right along. I'm personally in favor of this. Mr. Shields.
I'm curious, as the downtown management board, have they received or City Hall received complaints or inquiries from those who are, let's say, excluded for the last few years?
Who is excluded?
If based off of, if they don't meet these criteria, that's why I put air quotes there. Has there anybody reached out and asked for us to modify these requirements so they could have a deck as well?
I'll ask the city manager that.
I've just been here a short time. I've heard the high five complaint, but that was that predated me, but I don't know if we've gotten complaints.
And that was over the 50%. That was not over the deck itself or
Right.
chairs or design. That was over the 50% that was set up 5 years ago.
Jennifer Shorter, I am the chair of the Downtown Management Board. Thank you for your question. Actually, we've had complaints from retailers who can't get a dining deck because they don't serve food, but they want to sell merchandise on the street. So really, when we go back to look at why some of those requirements are in, it's not to exclude other restaurants, it's actually to exclude everybody from downtown from putting out a dining deck in front of their business with their merchandise and that. So we really wanted to keep it, because otherwise we could have 95 dining decks downtown, takes out another 95 parking spaces, and you could have, it would be a street bazaar every day.
Thank you.
So that's why they seem onerous, but they're actually, so that people like me don't say, well, I'm gonna get 4 of them and sell my merchandise.
Okay, good to know.
Mr. Moore.
So I respect my colleagues' input and concerns that have been expressed. I do support going forward with this now, with the understanding that I do think we need to really have a dialogue relative to the ordinance and that it needs to be in place for next summer, with our input being included. And I would say one other thing that I would mention to Ms. Walker, it does say, and I had asked about this, that the decks that are newly constructed in 2024 have to meet those criteria, so that those that have existed at this point at least would not have to do so for this summer. Thank you.
I believe those that have been in the past meet these criteria. Is that correct? They all meet these criterias already. So it's the past, we're looking at moving forward on it, basically. Mr. Wagner.
Yeah, my other recollection is a year ago, I think we both spoke up on behalf of High Five, at least 2 of us did, because there were some concerns that they had purchased a deck. And I believe those were being addressed by public safety, if I remember right at the time. So
Yes,
it's been a little while. And then a good news story on the decks is that City Park Grill had a neighbor concerned about their deck being too close to their business, and neighbors sitting on the flower plots, and City Park agreeing to back off, shorten their deck. And so it's been rectified administratively, so I appreciate that.
I was actually involved with that with Mr. Brown, owned the next door business, and we sat down and worked out how can we work this to make everybody happy and everybody work, and it did work out. I feel that, I'm okay with moving forward on this, but if you wish to make a motion for more discussion, that's up to you. Mr. Moore?
I'm happy to make a motion to approve the resolution to allow dining decks in 2024 as written, with the understanding we're going to talk about 2025 and get this settled. That's not part of the motion.
I second the motion.
Any other discussion? Public wants to weigh in on this. Sarah, is everybody weighing in on this?
No.
I don't see any. I don't know if I don't want to miss anybody. Okay. I go to Miss Beck for roll.
Moore, aye. Shields.
Yes.
Wagner.
Yes.
Walker.
No.
Murphy.
Yes. Motion passes 4-1. I will remind you, City Council, that there's a different string relationship between the Downtown Management Board, City Council, and the Downtown Business Office, the DMB and the DDA. They are overseen by the board, who have not up to the purview of City Council to do that. nor the city manager. I have asked the city attorney to look at that, as I think you all have, and we're waiting for some feedback on that in the future. But just to remind you, we are giving input, but probably not at some point. Could be guarded. Next is public comment, and this is your opportunity to come up and hit the mic, give your full name, full address. Mr. Frost, would you please hit the button? And it's your turn to speak.
Yes, Mr. Al Frost here. I've been here a few times, fourth time, talking about my vacation rental and how I disagree with you haven't renewed my license yet. And I've come up with an important point. With my license from 2022, clearly on the bottom of the license, it says, failure to submit your annual dues may result in not being able to operate. It doesn't say you're absolutely shut down now. You got to run the town. You got to sell your, no, it says you may lose your right to operate. What that means, January 1st came, I was operating all the way. The injunction was written. I was operating the whole time it was written. I was operating the day the injunction was signed. All that time, I never received any notice from the city that I was in violation of anything at all. I was never told I couldn't operate, and I was never told that my payment was late. It was not until almost October I was finally told and given the ticket, hey, you never received your payment. Well, I ran down right to pay. I said, you should have had this. They said, no, we didn't. So that's the only point. I'm never going to consider this tonight, but that's a pretty important point. I was operating legally all 2023. Your injunction states that no new rentals should be allowed. That was not a new rental. I've been operating for 14 years. I was operating all 2023 legally until October of 2023 when I first noticed from the city that I could no longer operate, that they hadn't received my money. So that's the only point. I think I'm very on legal grounds here. I was legally operating all year. The injunction came. He had no right to stop me from renting or take my license away. So I should be able to operate into 2024. So I have to say, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Mr. Ernst.
Dr. Ernst from 702 Elizabeth Street, Petoskey.
Please note that, Dr. Ernst.
I was taking a walkabout on Sunday and I happened to stop out our library and I picked up the Traverse City Express and I was looking it over, seeing what's going on in there. And an article in there caught my attention about recreation marijuana. Now, we have addressed this issue in the past, and I see Traverse City just made over $500,000 from the state on tax revenue from the sales of this right here. And it seems to me that Petoskey has missing the boat on this thing with the money coming in here. I know that you have left it to the citizens to decide recreation marijuana. But I was just wondering, maybe the city would be willing to support recreation marijuana on the thing coming up, because it is going to come up in the next election. They're already starting to get signatures to put this on the ballot right here. And the city has really, the council has made no stance on it one way or the other. But I'm looking at this, they've had legalization of marijuana since 18, and a lot of communities are getting revenue from the state that's not earmarked to do anything, and we're missing it right here. Gatorwade's gotten $500,000, Traverse City's got more than $500,000, Kalkaska, I don't know what they got, but they say each community, for every dispensary you have, it gets $59,000. Now, wouldn't that be nice to use that as you please, because it's not earmarked anyway, but there has never been a stance by the city council or anything like that I know of, and the way I see it, we have recreation in this area. We have Loon, which has monopoly in the county, and I don't feel that's right either. And when the last cycle of election came forward with putting it on the ballot, there was a very strong push by Loon to fund the anti-recreation people. And that's, they had a very large following and they pretty much killed it, but I was just wondering, this kind of, seems like we're missing the boat on getting extra money for our city. I mean, we're talking about, all these different things, maybe we could put that $500,000 towards our parking structure that we have never gotten here. I was around for that stuff when they came with the parking, raising the fees and everything like that. I have a history of that and I remember it. But, it is what it is. I don't know what your feelings are or if you want to take a stance, because it's kind of almost like putting your head in a noose every time you talk about this sort of thing. But what do I have to worry about, That's all I have to say right now.
When it comes to city council is a petition, therefore city council would have the decision of putting it on the ballot or making a movement, an ordinance on that. So city council, if it comes to us, we will have the option, two options, okay? Putting it on the ballot or making taking that in as an ordinance, okay?
You actually make the ordinance. It seemed to me that when they denied the election of that took it out of your hands.
Without it in front of me, I believe it would be repealing the current ordinance and taking stance, or it goes to the vote of the people.
Well,
what city council normally has done is step back and allowed the public, the voters, to make those decisions. That was the same way with changing the terms from 1 to 2 years and 2 years to 3 years. City council did not weigh in on that in the public. We allowed the voters to make that decision. And this would probably, I am gonna say probably would be similar, so.
So you think it's too controversial, too political to make an issue?
I think it's too early. I think it's too early for city council to do any considerations at this point.
Okay. We'll see what happens.
Thank you, sir.
Cool.
Thank you, Dr. Ernst.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Anyone else wish to speak? Good. Okay, we're gonna move right along. We're gonna go to the city manager's update, and for that, I'm gonna turn it over to City Manager Horn.
Thank you, Mayor. Do want to celebrate some staff at this meeting today. April birthdays for our staff this month. A number of them: Pat McGinnis in Electric Department, Pat Costello, Public Works, Channing Potter in the Parking Office, Brad Cooper, Water, Wastewater, Sherilyn Greenwell, Finance, Pamela Potter, Parking, Nisa Kessler, Library, Lisa Blair, Finance, and Alexis Peacock, Public Safety, all celebrating staff birthdays this month, in the month of April. April work anniversaries: Andy Simons in the downtown office, our marketing director, just celebrated a year. Stacy Cox, Library, also a year. Megan Goge, Library, 8 years, and Lillian Baker, Finance Department, 10 years with the city. Few more public meetings this week. Tomorrow night we have our monthly downtown management board meeting at 6 o'clock here in this room. There's a few items on their agenda. They will be reviewing a few pop-up event applications for consideration later this year. Also approving a holiday parade title sponsor. And then they will also be discussing their strategic plan, action plan as well tomorrow evening, starting at 6 o'clock. Then following that on Wednesday this week, Planning Commission also at 6 o'clock, they will be considering a special condition sign permit for the Little Traverse furniture and mattress facility, and then looking at a site plan review for the back lot. A few things I wanted to highlight, kind of on an ongoing annual basis, just to make our residents aware. These are on our website as well, but these are recurring kind of annual type things and good for everybody to know. We do have brush chipping that happens on the first and third Mondays of each month. That starts this month through the month of November. So again, that's the first and third Mondays, brush chipping. Small yard waste happens weekly. On Thursdays, that's from April through May, the end of May. So folks can clean out their flower beds and bring that material out to the right of way, and we will collect that over this 2-month period. And then our twice annual rubbish collection program gets kicked off in May on the 21st and the 28th. This will be west of Howard on Tuesday, and then east of Howard on Wednesday. Those weeks, again, that was May 22nd and May 29th, those 2 weeks. And then the second one is later in the year. I believe it's August or September, I believe. Looking at you, Mike. Okay. Councilmember DeMore put this out, and we have put it on our social media, kind of trying to get the word out for the Petoskey Youth Advisory Council that we are accepting applications and getting people to look at the website where we have the policy and procedure guidance materials for the YAC, if you will. And so we're accepting applications for students in grades 10 through 12 that are either in school in Petoskey or reside in the city of Petoskey. And that's a May 6th application deadline. Councilmember DeMore, anything to add to that?
Just that we are in the outreach mode. Yes. And it's not easy with high school students, but my goodness, we're sticking at it.
That's right. Also just wanted to, Kendall has gotten me out of the office the last few days, so I appreciate that. This is Sunset Park improvements. We've had some beautiful days, so I enjoy getting out, walking the sites. So as you know, this would be putting in a new, ADA accessible walkway around the park, having little areas where we'll have picnic areas off of the trail. We'll have a lookout as well that'll take in the beautiful vistas that we all enjoy. So to prepare for that, we've done, and our contractor has done a lot of work trying to clean out some of the overgrowth, if you will, along the existing fence, which will be replaced with this project. We'll be adding some new plant materials as well, but you can kind of see some of the path. It's a kind of a meandering path that'll go on the outer edges of the park. So we'll add a new amenities as well, picnic tables, trash collection facilities, and at some point, some public art, right, Mayor? So we're excited about that. I'm excited about that project. We'll likely go until that first week of June, maybe. Weather depending, obviously, but the hope is to get this buttoned up and in time for all of our visitors that will be arriving this summer. So we're excited about that project. Happy to take any questions or feedback at this time.
Council.
Oh, sorry. Let me, I meant to do this. I apologize.
Oh, yeah.
I wanted to introduce our interns that have joined us this evening as well. Nate and Michael. Nate and Michael are college students at North Central Michigan College. They'll be receiving their environmental and sustainability studies degree next month, right? So they have been with our office, Sarah and I, working out of the city manager's office since first part of February, kind of assisting me with the Green Communities Initiative, getting everything lined up to resubmit for that, which happens the end of this month. Also working on volunteer green energy initiatives. They've really gone around with every department head, kind of trying to understand how local government works, which is always a good educational opportunity. We've actually put them to work in the field. Kendall's used them on a couple different projects, doing some clearing along the bayfront, and actually they've walked the Bear River, picking up debris, trash, and doing some collection that way as well. So it's been great to get to know each of them, and I'm excited for what their future holds going forward. So it's been a good opportunity for them to get to know how we operate as local government, and maybe one day they'll be sitting up here in one of your seats. So thank you for all of your efforts over the last couple months, and congratulations on your upcoming graduation. It's exciting.
We owe you a clap.
Anything you'd like to say?
It's been great working with the city. It's been a wonderful opportunity. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for what you do. Sure, we've had benefit as well. Next, the appointment, consider the appointment to the Downtown Management Board. It's for Becky Phillip.
Kranig.
Kenneth.
Kranig.
She would be filling on the Downtown Management Board, and I take her name to you. She owns the Bear Cub, has been very active in the community. I talked to Jennifer Shorter and I said, help me find somebody that is all about Petoskey like she was. And she says, I think I know somebody. And we came up with Becky. So I'd like to bring her name forward to you, please.
Mayor, I'd be happy to make a motion to appoint Becky Phillip Kranig to fill a vacancy ending December 2025.
Support.
I have a motion. Do I have any discussion? I take a roll.
Walker.
Yes.
Demore.
Aye.
Shields.
Yes.
Wagner.
Yes.
Murphy.
Yes. I will stop by her office this next day or two and at her business and just say thank you and welcome aboard, as I'm sure Jennifer will as well. And Sarah. All right. Next. Moving along. Adoption of a proposed resolution that would authorize the city manager to execute a grant agreement and subsequent reimbursement request with the Department of Economic, Environmental, Great Lakes and Energy, EGLE, regarding water service line verification.
I'm going to turn it over to Mike. I just want to thank Mike and Jason for their work in applying for this opportunity. I think it's work that we have to do anyway, and to be able to do that and be reimbursed for our efforts, I think is a great solution to this issue. So I'll turn it over to Mike to give an overview of this agenda item.
Okay. So I'll just start out with last year when council approved a contract that allowed us to do the system verification on the water service lines. It's mandated by the state. All water suppliers, public water supplies, have to inventory their systems and identify the material that service line is constructed of. And when I say that, they've separated the public side of the service to the private side of the service. So the mandate requires that we excavate at the curb stop, which is the public and private side, and verify the type of material that the service is constructed of. And then the third point that we must identify is within the confines of the house. So there's 3 points of verification that we're required to do. We've applied for grant funding. It's a very expensive endeavor for us to do. All water supplies have to do this. And we have to have a inventory submitted to the state October 16th of this year. There's criteria that we have to meet on that date, but there's also ongoing verifications that have to occur.
So we didn't stop asking for grant funding to help us. We've been denied the first 2 rounds of grant funding just based on the city of Petoskey's standing, if you will. So we were quite pleased when we received the notice that we received a $600,000 grant. The contract that council approved last year was from GFL, and it was for $82,000 to do 300 services. Now we're supplementing those efforts with our staff, public works staff, which is not part of that contract, by doing the restorations on the green lawn areas of where these services are being excavated. We've done 170 services to date. We did those last year, and I think, Tina, you were involved in that process where we actually excavated down inner lawn, identified the characteristics of her service, backfilled it, and seed and mulched it. We have 130 of those to do this spring. Notices went out last week. Mistigs are being called in as I speak, and we will be doing the rest of those services. This grant allows us to not so much extend the verification process. We still have to meet the October deadline, but it's going to allow us to continue the verification to meet the state requirements. So I don't expect that we'll do anything with this grant this year. This grant extends through October, actually September of 2026. It's a $600,000 grant that's reimbursable. So we're going to have to front the money for this and these verifications. It is federal money passed through Eagle. So there is federal requirements that we have to meet. So our intent with this signing of this grant agreement, or with the approval of council, is to sign the grant agreement. We will put it in next year's budget. You'll see it in the CIP initially, then we'll budget for this money, and then we'll proceed with bidding and meet the requirements of the agreement that was attached to the the agenda memo. So it's good money. There's not a lot of strings attached to it. It came quickly. There is no match for this money. It's $600,000 and it's reimbursable. So I'll take any questions from council in regards to the process.
Ms. Walker.
Thank you, Mayor. Thanks, Mike Robbins. I did want to ask, now I understand, because I did actually read the Eagle grant, which, you know, late night Saturday night reading. I was curious because it's really clear that you're not, it's only reimbursable for the verification process. So does that also include, like, would that include the reseeding and putting the sod back as part of the verification process?
We are not asking for that reimbursement. For that process. We are going to use the $600,000 for the contractor to excavate that process.
And verify.
Right. We have 1,900 services that we base this grant on, and we focused on the cost to do the excavations. When you start going outside of those boundaries, it gets a little more complicated with force account, prevailing wage. But we can maximize this grant and supplement it with the crews and use the $600,000 for the contractor. So it'll be the same type of process that we did last year. We'll go out for bid just for the excavation, the hydrovac unit with a 2-man crew, and then we'll supplement it with our own crews.
And then the eventual replacement of those identified lead lines is a completely separate expense and process.
It is a separate process. Once we identify these services, and we started this back in 2020, all of our full reconstruct projects, we are replacing private and public side services. We always do the public side. We always have, but we are now, through this investigation, it's managing the services that we're going to be excavating, and we do replace. But this money has nothing to do with that.
Got it.
So we're hoping there'll be other grant monies coming forth once these inventories are in the state's hands, that they'll realize the amount of money that's going to take to replace these line services. And we have to replace 5% a year for the next 20 years. Now, that's only what we've identified as possibly containing lead. Even though the service may have been replaced out in the street and the lead gooseneck is gone, if there's a galvanized service still entering that house, it's considered, it's lead, and we have to replace it.
Yeah, I was wondering about that. Thank you for that specific. Okay.
Do you go down into the street where the shut off? A lot of the shut offs are in the street.
They're actually in the green lawn, and we picked, there was a random selection process that the state came up with that we utilized, that they gave us the flexibility that if we found a service that was in a concrete drive approach, we could move over one residence and get the green lawn. This $600,000 is going to be tackling some of the tougher services that we had to avoid or could avoid per the rule.
Mr. Moore.
So first of all, Mike Robbins, congratulations on getting this money for an unfunded mandate thrust upon the city. This other aspect is really, am I correct, a bigger unfunded mandate? What remains to be done in terms of replacing on the private side?
It's going to be a huge mandate.
Right. And so I encourage everybody at this table and in the community to reach out to your legislator to say this needs to be funded. It should not be the responsibility of the city to go on the private side of these lines without funding being provided for that purpose. End of sermonette. Thank you.
Anyone else wish to speak? Mr. Shields.
Mike, I just want to say thanks for getting that grant. Appreciate that work. Thank you. And then the 1,600, is that the goal for the 6,000 or that's just where's the 1,600 that remain?
There's, once we get done with the 130 that we have to do yet this year, we'll be about 1,600 remaining services. And if you do the math, it's about $375 per service. And that's what we're hoping to utilize with the $600,000 grant.
To cover that 16. Okay.
Correct.
In up to 2026 then?
Correct. It'll be a 2-year process. This grant was actually a reimbursable last year, October of 2023, but we've already have things set with our contracts. And when we applied, we based it on the 600,000 to finish.
Thank you.
That's why we'll be doing it in 25 and 26.
Thank you, Mayor. I just have one more question, Mike Robbins. How likely is it that you'll get more than just one bidder?
We had, I didn't bring it with me, but the last year we had, I believe, 8 or 9 bidders.
Okay.
So
there's plenty of
all over the state
contractors that can provide the capacity of the job.
Yeah, with this kind of money, I would expect we'll see the same large turnout. They bring a back truck to Petoskey, they'll be here for a while.
Thank you.
I go from this. What do we get a motion?
So moved.
Second motion. Motion from Mr. Moore, a second from Mr. Shields. Any other discussion? Public wish to speak? There being none, I go to Ms. Beck for roll.
DeMore.
Aye.
Shields.
Yes.
Wagner.
Yes.
Walker.
Yes.
Murphy.
Yes. Thank you, Mark. Next is the adoption of a proposed resolution that would authorize purchasing from Michigan Calcasca a latest production heavy duty front end loader at a cost not to exceed $232,716. Mike.
Yep, I'll take this real quick. Our budget, 2024 budget CIP included $290,000 for the purchase of heavy duty front end loader. It will be replacing the 2003 similar unit with 4,700 hours on that unit. I'll just briefly let you know that we have 2 loaders within the city fleet. One loader we use exclusively for the salt barn and loading. We only use one unless it's an absolute emergency, if that one is down. But this is a unit that's getting replaced. The older unit now become the salt unit. So we always have two loaders in this city. We put some detailed specifications and bid documents together, advertised March 16th. We did receive 6 bids on April 3rd. After review, 3 of the 6 bids met the specifications that were deemed complete. Michigan Cat was low bid at $232,716, and Inastor out of Tustin bid that was complete, and AIS out of Williamsburg. City staff is recommending that council approve the purchase through the Michigan Cat for $232,716.
So I have a motion.
I'll be happy to make a motion, Mayor.
I have a motion from Ms. Walker and a second from Mr. Wagner. Any other discussion?
Just a note that you came in under budget. Well done.
Thank you.
I'm sure we'll spend it someplace else. I go to Ms. Baxter.
Walker? Yes. Wagner?
Yes.
Demore? Aye. Shields?
Yes.
Murphy?
Yes. Next, the adoption of a proposed resolution that would authorize contracting with PC Lawn Care of Petoskey in the amount of $2,255 for a bi-weekly cycle for the citywide lawn maintenance services. And I'll turn that over to our Parks and Rec Director, Kendall.
Thank you. Over the last few years, we've all aware of the challenges to get seasonal help. And the last few years, we have held out hope that we would get enough people seasonally to complete some of these mowing jobs, which is there's a lot of acres that we are responsible for. And we have in turn ended up contracting a lot of it out, kind of piecemealing things together based on the staffing that we didn't have. So instead of repeating the same way we have the last few years, we put together a detailed specification, identified some areas that have been contracted out in the last few years. We added a few other areas for efficiency, and we did have a couple of bidders, and here tonight to hopefully get an authorization to execute the contract. Now, I will say that Emmett County has gone out for mowing bids. Petoskey Public Schools have gone out to mowing bids. So this is an unfortunate trend. I know personally we would prefer to do it ourselves, but that just right now is not possible with the lack of seasonal employees. So I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Mr. Moore.
So my only question is, was this in the budget in some form? I don't know if it was in the form of this, or if you could speak to that, please.
So even when we do it, our department charges streets or utilities or buildings based on the location that we're doing it. So yes, there is money in the budget for these particular services to get done regardless of who does it.
And this amount would be within the amount that was budgeted?
Yeah, there is a maintenance amount for each, because we have streets, we have utilities, we have building funds that will more than cover the cost of these. And it's our hope that down the road, we figure out a way where we can hire more seasonal and we put back some of these properties.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I take it that you coordinate how long and when they start and when they end. Is that correct?
That's correct. We have one of the improvements we made with tracking was the contractor has a spreadsheet of the properties, and they're required to turn that in based on the dates they bid it. So we will verify we will verify that when they submit their payment.
But come September, you will have a whistle of saying, stop.
Yeah, well, falls we've been going a little later, in the falls. There's certainly gonna be weeks where some of these may not get done due to weather. Due to bad weather or whatever, but we will work with the contractor to agree on an end date and a start date.
Is this end date flexible or is it?
Yes.
It's flexible.
It's flexible.
For your choice of calling. Council, do I have any questions or do I have a motion? Mr. Shields.
Move to authorize contract with PC Lawn Care.
Thank you.
I'll second the motion, Mayor.
So the motion from Mr. Shields, second from Ms. Walker, any other discussion? I go to Ms. Beck for roll.
Shields,
Yes.
Walker.
Yes.
Demore,
Aye.
Wagner.
Yes.
Murphy.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, that seems keeps turning it off. Okay, next is the adoption of a proposed resolution that would establish dates and designated locations for the 2024 Oregon City Council Convention. So I turn it over to City Manager Horn.
I'm gonna have Sarah run through this. Obviously, last year, there was a desire to move up our ward and city convention, so we used the third week of June as kind of our ward and city convention. So we're trying to get feedback from city council on those dates. So dates in June would be, last year we did use, again, the second meeting of June, we had as our ward convention, and then we moved, I think based on the agenda, there were some things with Maple Block that were pressing, so we had a meeting on the next week, which would have been the 24th of June. I'm not saying that would need to happen again, but you all have on your schedule recurring, obviously the first and third Mondays are recurring dates. So that might be something to consider where we use one of those regular meeting dates as the ward convention. So we don't have to look through calendars, and just as an option to consider.
Council, you have it in front of you. You heard that you mentioned the 17th and 19th. You mentioned the 17th and the 19th, which the 17th is the third Monday, which is city council.
The only thing with that week is obviously planning commission would be on Wednesday, the 19th. However, they can meet in the community room, and obviously by charter, we cannot start until 8. So I think this happened last year, and planning commission got through their agenda and it was not an issue. I'm assuming that same thing can happen, or they could meet in the community room if you wanted to meet that third week in June.
And you are looking at the city convention here? In this room?
Yes.
Mr. Wagner.
I'm good with the 17th and 19th. Comment that on the 24th. Received a garden club invitation today for a fundraiser celebration of their anniversary at the country club.
That's from 5:30 till 9 o'clock on the 24th. So that would probably
Not work.
not work for a city council meeting that night there. But we can.
Yeah, I think it wouldn't be my recommendation at this point. I would just say, let's use the second meeting in June as our meeting. Now, if we have something pressing that comes up, maybe I'll come back to you, but let's plan on.
Okay. Mr. Shields.
Do we have 2 meetings in July? Is it just the 15th?
2 meetings.
We have
the first and the 15th.
First and 15th?
Yeah.
Okay. I am available the 17th of June.
We don't have it on the 1st and 15th. We have it on the 12th and the 26th of city council, isn't it, for August? Are you talking August? July.
First.
Just
Okay.
point of clarification, we have to have it done because the affidavits for the mayor, no other council members will be on the ballot, has to be turned in by 4 p.m. on July 23rd. So.
Any other questions, comments?
Do we make a motion?
I need a motion.
Mayor, I'll be happy to make a motion to adopt June 17th, 2024 for our ward conventions and Juneteenth for the city convention at City Hall.
Support.
Any other discussion? I go to Ms. Beck, city clerk for roll.
Just for clarification, the recommended locations for ward conventions were all okay.
Yeah.
Just, okay, you said city hall, but that's only for
Oh,
the
excuse
city.
me, I'm sorry. For the ward conventions at all the respective schools.
I just wanted to make sure that was
Thank you.
okay with everyone.
And thank you for the switch back to City Hall chambers from Ward 1. I appreciate it.
Okay, so, well, Walker.
Yes.
Demore.
Aye.
Shields.
Yes.
Wagner.
Yes.
Murphy.
Yes. We're set on the 17th and 19th at 8 o'clock for June. We're all set.
Right.
Concerns?
Yeah, so
There was another scenario that came up that actually Sarah had a good idea. We could still do our normal meeting, 6 o'clock council meeting on the 17th and just be done by 8. But if that's too much, to cram into one night.
I don't think it is, and I'll tell you what. If you find that you want an agenda for that day and need it after the 3rd, we'll go with it.
Just kind of play it by ear.
Play it by ear.
It goes. Okay.
Yeah. Is that good with you guys?
yes.
Kind of what my comment would be, it would be 6 to 7:30, because I always get there a half hour early, the room's not set up, ready to go.
Right.
7:15.
Yeah.
That's it.
That could make it tight, couldn't it?
We'll play by ear, maybe make a
Yeah, we
determination
may not
on the 3rd.
necessarily need it. If we don't need it, we won't use it. But if we have something pressing that we need to have a few things on there, we can do it.
All right.
Thank you for the feedback.
Okay. We have 2 things left on the agenda. One is city council comments, and I'll start at Ward 4 with Ms. Walker.
Mayor, tomorrow night is the opening night of varsity baseball at Faircrest Woods. I'm looking forward to that game at 6 o'clock.
Announce her voice on.
And just people are very excited about the spring cleanup. We've been getting all kinds of phone calls, both personal phone calls and messaging at Facebook at 11 o'clock at night. There are calls at Emmett County DPW about the spring cleanup because people are chomping at the bit to get everything green and cleaned up. So I'm excited to provide that information to our community because people want to know when it's going to happen. So thank you so much to our city staff.
Ward 3, Mr. Wagner.
I want to thank Kendall for the opportunity to allow our Sunrise Rotary last weekend to help with some shoreline cleanup. They also cleaned up some of the highway down toward Walloon. And my understanding is my fellow Spartans, the Tip of the Met Spartans, are going to help with another shoreline cleanup. So we enjoy doing that.
Mr. Shields, Ward 2.
Thank you, Mayor. We had a great kickoff to the zoning discussion that we're having in this community with the joint meeting with Council and Planning Commission. And I appreciate the community digging into this. You know, my personal story, moving here 10 years ago as of a young family, early career professional, I was fortunate enough to find a house, a starter house at a low price point. That is no longer here in Petoskey. And so my concern is that young families, early career professionals will no longer be able to move into our community, and that would be a detriment to all of us. So I encourage us to dig into looking at this zoning reform. There's a website that city staff have provided that we'll be sharing and inviting the community to look into. One of them is the zoning toolkit, which has a lot of great explanations. One of them I'm going to read here that says there is no empirical evidence that higher density causes any decline in property value. That's one concern I've heard. And it goes on to say that density carefully designed and regulated can offer dramatically improved property values, greater tax revenue relative to services required, and neighborhoods that are much more vibrant and socially connected. So I encourage everyone to look into those resources and follow along in the discussions.
Thank you. Ward 1, Mr. Moore.
As earlier indicated, I am deep into Youth Advisory Council outreach. And I have social media postings, et cetera, materials. So if anybody has any ideas, that'd be anybody at this table or anybody within the realm of the room or anywhere with ideas about outreach, I welcome them. Thank you.
My summary is, we're moving forward on the Arts Commission. We'll have something for City Council, 6th, down to 6th. Also, City Council, for the public that didn't know, we met with the Planning Commission from 9 till almost noon on Saturday to set up the stages for revisiting the zoning. I was also up at the middle school with Ms. Moore today. She presented recruitment, and I ended up spending an
I can speak to that. I spoke with the gentleman Friday that got a door-to-door canvassing, selling permit. He's not selling anything. He's on the board with American Red Cross. I believe he owns a restoration company and they're handing out flyers to community members. And then the following next Saturday with, I believe it's PSO Hoig on installing these free smoke detectors. It's my understanding.
some open house that they asked me their time and I will.
So that gentleman is David Ham, by the way, another Sunrise Rotarian.
Open Meetings Act, for us to discuss confidential matters. I asked, we will not be having any business to come after this. We'll come and adjourn. So
You can adjourn it right.
we can adjourn right now. Really? Okay, first I wanted a motion. We need a motion.
I'd be happy Mayor, to make a motion to go into closed session pursuant to act.
And adjourn following it.
And adjourn following.
Do I have a second?
I second the motion.
Mr. Shields made a second. Yes, you can after the motion made. Okay, we got a second motion. Now I asked for discussion. Is any discussion on it? Ms. Moore.
Just confirming with the city manager that we do have a opinion in some form that permits us to. Okay, thank
I go to Ms. Beck for roll.
Walker. Yes. Shields.
Yes.
Demore. Right. Wagner.
Yes.
Murphy.
Yes. I asked that you pick your batteries out, pass them up.